So, hey, Doug Johnson here with the Unprepared Podcast. I am at the palatial estates of the Nickens family here with David Nickens on Lake Conroe in Conroe, Texas. Beautiful place here you have here, David.
Thank you very much. We're pretty happy with it. We get to spend a lot of time here, and this is what gets us away from the everyday grind and gets us out where we can enjoy it a little bit.
It's beautiful here, and I was hoping that we were going to have waterfront, so we would have this beautiful background. It's relaxing when you're come home from a hectic day of assembling race motors, isn't it?
It sure is. This puts it all into perspective when you get to come out here.
Yeah, it makes it the long journey was worth the trip, I imagine.
That's right. Exactly right.
You're a very well-known engine builder, performance engine builder, and you have a long history of being very competitive and building very competitive engines. Where did this start? And what was okay? So did you start racing as a kid growing up? Or were you into Hot Wheels? Or tell us the story.
You know, I think I was really late getting into the racing industry. I grew up in sports, and I went to the racetrack a couple of times and really enjoyed it. And so my goal was to build something that I could go out and have fun at the local tracks, and it just escalated and escalated and
it escalated quickly because you went to Comp Eliminator and all that kind of stuff. Where'd you start out racing?
I started in modified Eliminator and Comp Eliminator, and you know, I wanted to be able to race and have a good time. And the engine builders around here, they didn't seem to get stuff done at the pace I wanted it. So my brother and I started our own shop, and it was a really good deal. It worked out really great. We actually wanted to just do our own stuff. And as we built engines for a few guys, it escalated and escalated, and pretty soon we were so busy we couldn't race again.
Oh, wow.
So it worked out really good for us to be able to continue in the engine building business. And we started in modified, went to comp, and had some pretty good success over the years in it.
So what were you doing prior when you built this first project? What were you doing for a living?
Believe it or not, I actually drove a 18-wheeler, a milk truck for Foremost Foods, and it was a great job because I went to work about 12 in the morning and worked till I got finished, which was about 10 o'clock, and it allowed me to have all day to work on my race car and try to work on engines. And you know, I wanted to race so bad, and that job demanded so much of my time. It was very tough, and I can remember I told my boss I needed off to go to the races, and he said, "Oh man, no problem, no problem." And as it got closer, he said, "You can't take off." And I'll never forget, I went to the Winter Nationals, the first national event I ever went to, and I got a runner-up, almost won it. And that might have been the worst thing that ever happened to me. I had the desire to go race then, and I quit that job and went to work in my shop. And
so you were a milkman?
I was a milkman.
I never would have guessed.
Yeah.
And what year was that?
Oh my goodness, I'm not sure. It was probably I don't know, maybe 80, 81, okay. Something in that range. Yeah.
Well, yeah. That's when Pro Stock was really getting popular.
Right.
Glidden was doing his thing, and Warren Johnson and all these guys. So there was a lot of focus on Pro Stock, and you know, I think Pro Stock was a little more popular than the fuel cars back then.
I think it was, and all of those guys, Lee Shepard and David Rear and
even Bruce Allen.
Bruce, even after Lee. They were just heroes to us. I mean, I looked up to them at every race, and you know, I can remember it. I went to the races and I admired the job they did, and fortunately we got looked at by a big sponsor and got a shot at racing for a living, and we were very fortunate when Castrol came along and wanted us to race for them.
I mean, a lot of kids grow up, and you hear even Chuck, Sightseer, some of the Street Outlaws guys always wanted to be professional racers. A lot of these no-prep guys, a lot of these guys coming up in the world want to be professional racers, and you're a milkman who decides to go modified racing, and then you get a sponsorship. And who was the first sponsorship? I mean, was that like? Like, what planet am I on?
Well, we raced locally and had some success, and I think the very first sponsor I ever had was Gary Harwood, and he helped us out at a bunch of races and was a great sponsor and he was a very good cheerleader for us. He kept telling us how good we were going to be and worked with us daily, and we made a lot of races, and we had a lot of fun with him, and I can remember Butch Leal came to me one day and asked me would I be interested in being part of a super team that Gil Kirk was putting together, and I thought about it and I said, well, I don't know. I'm not a guy that wants to travel to all of them, but it's a dream of mine to race. And he said, well, then say yes. Let's go racing. And we were fortunate to get to be part. Gil Kirk hired us to race for the Rod Shop, and we raced for him for quite a few years. And then Castrol came along and put their own team together, and they picked us to be part of it. And
is that when you moved to Pro Stock?
No, that's not when I moved to Pro Stock. I ran comp for many years for them guys, and Castrol put a team together, and it was John Force and Gary Armsby and Pat Austin and Bill Barney, Larry Morgan, and me. And so we put that team together, and I raced with them for quite a few years, and about 12 years I think I was with them, and it was a great sponsorship. It did two things. It allowed us to go out and service our customers every week because we were at every race, and it made us better racers. We learned what the public wanted to see. We learned what sponsors wanted. It was a very good learning experience for us, because racing is actually more than just going to the races and racing. People don't get it sometimes, but I can remember talking to Graham Light about an issue one time, and Graham looked at me and he said, David, you're right, but you got to understand one thing. We're putting on a show. You're just a racer. We've got to do all of these things to put the show on. We've got to please the fans. We got to do all this stuff, and you're just a racer. And I said, yeah, but I just want to win every race I go to.
he had to remind you that there's a little bit of show business.
Yeah, there's a little bit of show business behind this whole thing. So, but it was a great experience. I wouldn't take nothing for it, and I can say this, that Castrol was an integral part of our racing career. They really worked with us, helped us, promoted us. They did all the things that helped us get better in the racing industry.
That's cool. That's cool to have someone that comes along, because a lot of people have to figure it out themselves. When to make hero cards, when to make shirts, when to, or is it worth it? Are we going to sell any when we go out, or getting appearance money and stuff like that? And so to have someone come along, especially in the age before social media, where you didn't have YouTube to look up this or Google it,
right?
They knew how to be professional and how to promote somebody via the at the race, or I imagine y'all did all kinds of other stuff, appearances for car shows.
We did. Every other race, we were paired up with two of the drivers, and we did appearances at every other race. So that meant we came in on Tuesday before the race and worked radio remotes, car dealerships, anything it took to sell oil.
Yeah.
I mean, we were and literally the guy that was the president of Castrol, he knew very little about racing. He was a marketing guy.
Yeah.
And he came from a company that had nothing to do with racing, Pond's Cold Cream. And Andy Granatelli and I we were sitting talking one day about John Gardella, and he said he's the smartest man I've ever met. He said he knows how to promote. He don't know anything about racing. And I don't know that was 100% true, but John Gardella knew how to promote the team and how to put you in a position to get the maximum amount of exposure. And he got it when it comes to advertising side of it. There was times when I would be down on myself because we didn't do as good as we should. And he said, hey, you got on television, you got the maximum amount of exposure, you did all this, and you're going to start winning every week. And his philosophy was he wanted to put a team together where maybe one day John Force won and we didn't, and the next day we won and John Force didn't, and Larry Morgan won. And he put a team together where we went, I don't remember the number, but close to 100 races where one of our cars won every race.
Oh, wow.
Every race. So he was a very smart man, and he was an integral part of us getting started and teaching us that there's more to it than just racing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's there's the meeting the people and being out on the street, and then
Exactly.
and doing that stuff that helps earn your ability to be a professional racer.
Right.
That's the side that's not all glitz and glamour, but it is pretty cool, and the relationships and the experiences are pretty
Right.
cool.
Right. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that there's more to it than just racing. And when you do the things you can do to make a sponsor grow and get better and continually promote them, well, that's what makes a great relationship between a racer and a sponsor.
Yeah. So let's get back into your brother's name was
Robert.
and he passed a couple years
No,
ago.
he's here.
Oh, he's here?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I don't
he's
know
still he's still alive. My younger brother passed a few years
Okay.
ago, and Robert retired just a few years ago, and he still comes to the shop. He's still a part of it. He's just not on the every day-to-day business of it.
Is he an older brother?
He's a couple of years
A couple
older.
of years older. Okay.
Yeah.
And you are not in any way, shape, or form ready to retire yet, are you?
No, I don't know what I'd do if I did retire. Every day I get up and I go to work, and I love what I do, so I don't know why I'd retire.
Yeah, that's cool. So, where's the shop at now? Is it as busy as it's ever been, or is it
Right
sloped
now,
off? Or?
our shop is as busy as it's ever been, and we've diversified. At one time, we were about 80% comp eliminator motors, because that's what we raced. My son raced comp eliminator, my nephew raced, and I raced, and so we had that was about 80% of our business. Now we've diversified, and we have customers all over the world, and we have in just about every eliminator. We do pro stock engines, we do comp eliminator, we do guys with super stock engines. We're in the factory showdown now. I'm doing a development program for a guy that's fixing to come out in that, and there's just a lot of things that we've gotten into. I do top dragster, top sportsman guy stuff. So and that, I think we've really spread out in what we did. For years, you never saw a nitrous motor in my shop, and now I say half the motors in there are nitrous motors.
So was that a learning curve? Because you're used to high rev and small cubic inch motors.
It was. It took a different mindset, and luckily I had some guys that were pretty good at it. And every time I would try to get those motors up to turn them over 9,000, they'd stand on my foot and say, "No, that's not it. We got to get that back down." And
so you got to be able to shift it sometimes.
We got to shift it sometimes, right.
Well, tell us a little bit, being the comp eliminator racer that you were and involved with that so many years. That's a class that a lot of times gets overlooked because it's still kind of a bracket index deal. But these guys, you're building max horsepower per cubic inch,
right.
And it's more high tech. It's somewhere in between NASCAR technical engines and Formula One, I would say.
Well, you build that engine, and it's all weight per cubic inch, and those engines probably need to make somewhere around 3 horsepower per cubic inch to even be competitive in that class. And really, you have to extract everything you can out of that engine to be able to go out and run up front. And there's so many different combinations that there's small cubic inches, big cubic inches. Everything has its own little niche in that class, and you have to be on the cutting edge of technology, or you're not going to be competitive in that class.
You think it's more cutting edge than what Pro Stock's at, because you still have to learn a lot more? I think Pro Stock's kind of 500 cubic inch. They've spent a lot of time with that cubic inch in combination.
Pro Stock's probably the toughest class out there to make horsepower and compete in, but comp eliminator, I think as a whole has the same bit of technology as Pro Stock does. It's just that those guys in Pro Stock are so good. I mean, they are so good at using everything you give them, and a lot of comp eliminator guys can kind of, we don't like this index, we can move to this one, we can change to this class, and there's ways to move. In Pro Stock, you have to be so precise with everything you do. And the cars are the most sophisticated cars I've ever seen. And I've been around every style of car there is, and nothing's close to a Pro Stock car.
Pro Stock has always been my favorite. For one, they look like a real car. The monster truck show of the fuel cars was a little different. I liked that they were naturally aspirated, high revving. You had to shift them, and they looked like, even with the snorkels, looked like a car you'd see.
Right.
where the funny cars are. But a lot of people don't understand that if you missed your shift points by 150 RPM, you're killing the power band of the motor. And these guys have to be really good. They have to be able to work the clutch. And
well, perfection is what it takes to be able to run up front and be on top in pro stock. And literally the drivers will tell you they have the power to probably the top 10 or 12 cars all have the same horsepower out there right now. It's the person that does the best job with it. And honestly, it takes perfection in pro stock to be able to run up front.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no margin for error. I mean, we would go test and test and test, and literally, a driver that can't hit the shifts within 50 RPM, he really is going to struggle to run fast. And you know, those cars are so sophisticated. They honestly, people don't get it, but they run in the 960s, 970s, and 60 foot with a naturally aspirated car at 2,350 pounds. That's pretty incredible.
it is.
And they're just and it's a fun category. You know, I can't say I like or dislike the fuel injection, but I raced in the carbureted era, and I think it allowed a little bit more flexibility. Some guys had a little more lateral movement to get better. They've all got pretty close together now, and I think it's gone basically to a driver's race now. Nobody has got that next step and really stepped up in it lately.
Yeah. What do you think about them allowing any engine combination in any particular body? I think that was a good move for the class.
I think it was a good move. I don't think a lot of guys have stepped over to that yet, but they will. And I think it's a new rule this year. I think there's some guys sitting out there kind of with a good looking pro stock cars thinking, well, I can put a Chevrolet in this Ford, or I can put a Dodge in that Chevrolet and make it go. And I think the class really is got 10 or 12 front runners, but I think the class is still real healthy today.
Freeman's done a good job of keeping it alive.
He has. And listen, got to hand it to Richard. He's committed to the class. He does a great job with it. He's got a good engine shop and a lot of really good guys working there. And you know, they're going to be a front runner from here on out.
You got Jeg and Erica working together. I mean, she's proven herself to be one of the best of all time.
I think she's the best lever in the class. There's nobody that can leave the starting line with her on a regular basis, and she's proved it day in and day out. There's her driving ability is amazing.
It is really amazing to think this little girl that came from junior dragsters and is now going to be. I mean, Bob Glidden said that she could be one of the best of ever drivers of pro stock. She's obviously the best female.
I agree 100%. She's amazing, and her driving ability and leaving the start line is incredible.
What a lot of people don't know is that to be a top 10 driver in that class, it takes discipline in mind. You have to be physically fit so that you're focused in a car that's 100 degrees, 120 degrees inside. I mean, they can't stay out all night partying the night before a race.
Those things are gone. In the old days, a lot of drivers did do that, but that's gone because the bar is set so high today.
You have to be on point when you show up.
You do, and listen, you can look at the class today and how many different winners they've had this year. I believe it's 8, and literally Greg and Jason hadn't won yet this year, and there's a lot of guys that are just right on the cusp of winning, and I mean, it just shows how good the class is, and I think any driver out there can win the championship that can qualify in the top 10 this year.
Yeah, that's good for the class, and I hope to see it succeed. A lot of people say they want to see the Copo cars and the GT500s and as the new pro stock, but I think there's still, if it's publicized right, a lot of time left in that class.
I think the class has a lot of time left in it, and I think fans love the class. I think now, like you said, Erica's got her fan base. Greg and Jason's got their fan base. The new kid, Tanner Gray's coming in, and my gosh, he's been amazing.
He's been a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah,
and he's emotional and can talk some smack.
Well, you know what? I mean, I miss that in the sport. I can remember in the days when I went to the races, Bob Glidden, he didn't like Warren.
Yeah.
And Warren consequently didn't get along with him, and that made a great rivalry.
Yeah.
And Darrell Alderman was a guy that he had his own persona, And so I think that rivalry is very good for the class. You don't have to like everybody out there. You have to turn the wind light on.
Now,
that's what makes you good.
My ultimate dream in pro stock would be Liberty shifted nitrous small blocks, but it doesn't fit the class theory. But come on, they would just be sick.
They would. That would be a great deal right there. I think
to see the competition level with small blocks on gas shifted would be.
It would be
pretty amazing.
I see the factory Copo cars, the Fords and the Dodges. I think that class has got a great place in NHRA. I think it's new. Everybody's falling into it. I would be surprised if you don't have 50 cars at Indy in that class.
Wow.
And they're really starting to get what it takes. And that's where the guys build their confidence up, maybe to move up to pro stock one day. I think it's a great
class. I'd like to see it at every race with guys that are doing every race and going to that level and sponsorships and stuff like that, because it would level it out more where you have the two fuel classes and then you have pro stock and pro mod, and then you have something that everybody could relate to, because that's a car anybody could buy.
That's correct.
Well, you got to get on the list.
Yeah, you got to get on the list. Right.
There's plenty of them out there that you could buy if they allowed all the year models, and because people flip them when it's time to get a new car.
Yeah, they do. Whenever the new ones come out, they all obviously flip them and move up to the next thing. But it's a great class. I mean the manufacturers have done a good job with all three manufacturers that are in it, and they've all got good parts. Every one of them manufacturers has got a car that can win, and the engines are fabulous today.
Now, what needs to happen is Toyota needs to step up with a two-door sedan, two-door coupe with a V8 and a supercharger, and make a car that would be competitive, and then you'd have some diversity. It would be really cool. Overhead valve, 4-valve deal, that'd be cool.
I talked to Toyota years back about they wanted to try to develop a car for pro stock, and they really had some interest in it, and it just never went through because they didn't have anything. They didn't have an engine, didn't have a car, didn't have nothing, and I think one day that might happen.
But now that they're allowed to run Chevrolets or Hemis or Fords or whatever, maybe they could find a good engine program and just have their car base out there.
Exactly.
You'll see a Camry with the wheelie bars on it. It'd be kind of cool.
Right.
They just need to get with the times and make a rear-wheel drive car with a V8 in it.
Yeah, right. Right.
So that's cool. So you had no interest in racing as a kid. What kind of sports did you play?
I played baseball growing up, and I.
Would you live in the Conroe area?
No, I lived in the Aldine area.
Okay.
I played for MacArthur for several years, and then when I got out, I played a couple of years after I got out of high school.
Oh, very cool. So that explains what you were telling me before we started this, your love for your grandson's sports at Magnolia, and he's doing really good. He's a freshman that's on the varsity over there, and
he's going to be a hoss.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's really cool. So, well, what do you think about? Have you been a fan of Street Outlaws when they came on? Did you watch Pinks and all that stuff? Or
I wasn't. I didn't really watch any Pinks. I started watching a little Street Outlaws early on, and I wasn't really interested in it. And then James Kay and I got together and we started talking about some things that we could do that make it where he, help him out with his category and what he could do. And I'll tell you, I think all of the Street Outlaw guys have done a wonderful job for racing.
Yeah.
They have promoted the sport. That the level of interest has gone up 20 or 30%.
Oh yeah, people are bringing cars out of the woodwork, out of their garages, and I think there's an energy in drag racing that we haven't seen ever.
Absolutely, and they're filling stadiums up. They're doing a great job with what they do, and I like the concept of it. I'm not an advocate of street racing, but I do think that there is a place for everything they're doing, and they're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, and I tell you what, when they first came out, obviously even in the Houston area, James and I were part of it. There was a renewed interest in street racing when the show got popular, and when everybody started watching it and talking about it, and social media started helping it grow and all that stuff. But that's kind of that excitement kind of drowned out down here in the Houston area now, and everybody's really interested in this no prep thing. And Shannon Morgan did a great job with Redemption, and Mike and Scott with the Dirty South, and now No Prep Kings has really put no prep on the map. So people are like, why do I need to waste the time on the street when I can go and be safe at a track.
Right.
And what Street Outlaws has really done now is evolved into what Wally Park's original idea was, to get people safe and off the street.
That's correct. And I think Shannon's done a wonderful job with her organization. She continually changes the rules to try to make it fair, and she's really done a great job.
Yeah.
And I think she needs to be commended for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
She's the queen of no prep. Yeah,
Yes, she is.
So you've been at one. You've been at one when I announced it.
Yeah,
and,
I have.
It's the energy there is even more so than sometimes a national event. May not be as many people, but there's a different energy, a family feel.
There is, and you know, the whole niche of the way it goes down and the energy of what happens there, it's exciting. Listen, I'm telling you, I love it. I think it's a great sport.
For a guy who's used to quarter mile with the scoreboards on, and at that level, to go to a no prep race where they're doing this silly thing with the tree and then no times and all you get's a win light. It was a little different to get used to, I imagine.
It was, and it took me a long time to look at it and understand it, and you know, I think a lot of people like it for the way it is. I'm the guy that always wants to tweak the last few thousandths out of a combination, and you can't do that without having the scoreboards on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm still that guy that wants the boards on and wants to work on my combination and try to extract that last few thousandths out of it.
Yeah. And it's tough to do too when you have to turn it down a little bit for some of the conditions.
You do, but you know what? It's just like it's no different in any category. You're not going to go to a racetrack that's perfect every time.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's NHRA or where it is.
They're complaining about their prep all the time now.
Yeah, right. And you know, I think that's what makes the sport good, is because the really, really good tuners, they always rise up.
Yeah.
They always do a good job when the track's not good.
The people that put in the most work still end up winning more times than not.
They do. The cream always rises to the top.
That's cool. So, of course, Billy Smith came to you. How did James K end up at your shop? Do you remember?
Well, he had heard an engine one time, and he carried it to another engine builder, and they told him it would be quite a few weeks before they could get on it. And he called me one day and said, "Hey, I got a race this coming weekend, and I hate to ask you, but can you help me?" I said, "Bring it over, and let's see what we can do." And he brought it in on Tuesday, and we put it back in his car on Thursday, and he went to the races. So he's been a great customer and a friend ever since.
Yeah, he's a good dude. And then that's how Billy Smith came to you.
Billy was about the same way. We had the same scenario, and you know, we've just hit it off, and I enjoy working with Billy. He's a great guy.
He's a good dude.
And he's got a different combination. He's got a Ford, and you know, when he first brought it over there, I said, "Jesus Christ, man, a Ford, come on!" And now he's
a big block Ford at that.
Yeah, big
small
block
block Fords have been impressive in their classes
Right.
for a long time. But
Right, but he's really, Billy does a great job, and you know, he's only been doing this very short period of time, and he looks like he's going to be a force to reckon with.
Been 460s and limited, and
Right.
you know, that's impressive, especially in like, really, he didn't know if he was going to go no prep racing or go to drag radial, and Kenny Hubbard kept pushing the drag radial scene. This limited class popped up and got real popular, and he's like, "That's where you get in where you fit in."
Right, and it fit him. He
It
did a
did.
great job there, and it really fit him. Now he's wanting to move up and run X now, and I think he'll be good there too.
Yeah, he will be. He's turned out to be a heck of a driver too.
He has. He's done a really good job, and you know, I told him 100 times that you don't get this overnight. It takes a lot of runs. It takes a lot of seat time, and you know what? He's pretty patient. He goes out and tests a lot. He does all the right things. I think he's going to be great.
And that's good. That's with James too. He's a heck of a driver, a guy that came from bracket racing, and then he did some street, and then he been on some street outlaws, and he's going to be very competitive with that car. And what I know that he talked about multiple combinations, and then y'all decided on LS. You've done some developmental work from LS since the beginning, right?
I have. I was involved with the development side of this head combination with Dart, and we've been really excited about the LS stuff. And I told him it's time to really build something that'll go out there and we can make a mark with it. And he was he was a little reluctant at first, and we talked about all the combinations he could do and how the classes he could run, and I think it's going to fit. It's going to be a good fit for him in that.
I think so too. His relationship with Nitrous Outlet is strong, so
Right.
Being able to carry the banner for them again in this new car in the mean green, the 5th gen that we just recently last week revealed to the world, and people were just in awe. Mark Banner, you could have picked a better guy to paint it, and Mark
Right.
Banner, who's just down to the last detail. He came to the reveal with a bucket of paint in his arm to touch anything up. James might have messed up, but I mean, it's cool to see a team come together, even from the painter standpoint. That's a racer.
Yeah, James is a real racer, and I can tell you this: it's been very difficult for him to do all the things he's done on this car, but he's done a remarkable job putting that car together. He's got it to where now it's ready to go racing, and he has gone the extra mile on everything he could on that car.
Which is cool because he came from a car that maybe wasn't up to par.
Right.
And he did a good job building Judith's car, which is very competitive in True Street. And
yes.
You build the motors for that too.
I do.
They're LS also.
LS also, you're right. And Judith's going to be a good racer. Listen, she's getting a lot of experience now. And
she's gone faster than most of a lot of dudes, and she's able to drive out of wheelies and stuff like that. So.
Right, and she has the desire to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing right there. She wants to go test every week. She wants to go run. She's got the desire to do it, and that's a huge part of it too.
Yeah.
And it don't hurt having somebody like James tuning on your car.
Oh yeah, I know, right? and he's done a good job. He's done a good job with Billy Riles.
Yeah,
Billy
Raines.
Raines, yeah. Yep. Billy Riles, I know him too, but Billy Raines, his trucks come along. Are you doing his motors now too?
I do Billy stuff also.
Well, that's been a great relationship too. You brought a bunch
been.
of Billies your way and a bunch of...
Yeah, right, right. He's Billy's a good racer in his right too. I think he's won a few races and he's right in there.
And Robert built him a hell of a truck.
Yes.
I mean, I worked with Robert Fulmer for John Harrison back in the late '90s, and that dude. He'll look at it long enough to figure out where to make it really trick, and
right.
That's cool. It may take him a while to get it done, but he can build some really trick stuff. What you raced John Harrison? You known that guy for a long time.
I've known John Harrison for God knows how many years.
30. Brilliant chassis builder.
He is. He's a great guy, and he's a great fabricator.
Yeah,
sure is.
And a guy who's really passionate about the sport, and kind of tends to watch from the outside looking in now.
Yeah, when I was in Comp Eliminator, John and I did a lot of things, a lot of projects together, and he always helped me on my car. Built headers, I mean, just a phone call away every time I needed him, and I really appreciated that.
Do you miss driving at all?
Not really. I don't miss it. I enjoy working on combinations. I enjoy the shop side of it way more than I did driving.
Oh, okay.
My son raced for years, and listen, he was a great driver. The second year he ever run a car, he won a world championship.
Oh, wow.
And he was a fabulous driver, and honestly, if I could have drove as good as him, I would have had a lot of luck. I could have probably won 100 races.
Oh, wow.
But I enjoy working on the cars more than anything.
It's cool too now at the place you're at where you can go to a race and socialize and see other combinations and go talk to this guy if he's having an issue or whatever, and not have to worry about hauling something somewhere and unloading it.
And getting your car ready to race and competing. And listen, I've had a lot of really great guys work for me over the years and worked with them, and that's why we've been successful. I've worked with Ricky Smith for several years, and when I had my Pro Stock cars, he was a crew chief on it, and I learned a lot from Ricky. He's a smart guy.
That's pretty cool because he's a legend, and he's killing it in the nitrous game too, isn't he?
Yeah, I tell you, I don't know. I thought years ago, Ricky, I said, man, when are you ever going to quit? And he said, when it's not fun anymore and I can't win. And I don't think that's ever going to happen. He's just winning every week.
I know, right? Did you get to see the episode of Put Up or Shut Up with him and Stevie Fast that Brian Lowens did?
I don't think so.
It's on Motor Trend on Demand. If you got $4 a month, you get the app on your phone and you can watch it. It was an awesome episode where they were at a green track and Ricky couldn't get down it and was ready to leave. They were racing for an actual $10,000, and Stevie and Billy Stockler went over and talked to him and got him to stay, and he ended up losing both rounds to Stevie, but it was really cool, and it was cool to see. Brian Lowens is an amazing guy, an amazing announcer, and got hired to do this for Motor Trend, and it's its own episode that is like something you would see on Velocity or Discovery.
Really? Wow.
And yeah, they did 8 episodes, and he matched up Gassers one episode. He matched up he had Dean Marinas and the Bruder Brothers in X275. And
Wow.
yeah, it was really best 2 out of 3 for $10,000, and they're all talking smack, but they're friends.
Right,
you know?
exactly, yeah.
So, what have you been to one of Donald Long's races?
I have.
What'd you think about that?
I think he's an amazing promoter. I can't wait to go to the next one either. I think he's an amazing promoter.
He is the best out there right now.
He
I
sure
think.
is.
And,
You know,
and radio racing is different and cool, and I'm a no prep guy. I've been going to these no prep races since they started. Hence the Unprepared Podcast that we're doing.
Right.
We kind of show up without any notes and do it unprepared like the track is. But I love the atmosphere at the radio race. I love seeing the scoreboards come on. I love seeing the records and watching the classes. J.D. Campbell's a great friend of mine. Has a rear Morrison small block combination, and it's the best of the best parts wise and crews and drivers.
He gets it. Donald does, and he does an amazing job promoting his races. He's gotten the sponsors in there. He has done a wonderful job, and listen, he packs the place because he's a great promoter, and people like him.
Yeah.
And that's huge. He treats people right. He treats racers right, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and no matter how much he talks about Keith Haney, people are still going to show up at his race.
Well, hey, I whatever it takes to get the interest up and keep it going, I'm for it. And those two, listen, I got to tell you, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoy his racing, and I enjoy him.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
And it's cool is that he has sponsors that say, hey, we know how he is. We know what he's going to say on his live feeds. We know it, but he's going to put on an event that's fabulous. And, we're not – some corporations are still so corporate that they can't handle when somebody talks real talk or uses foul language.
Right.
And the ones that have stuck with him and – realize that there's more to it than you can't sweat the small stuff.
Right.
It made it really, really a good show.
I talked to him sometime back, and we were talking about sponsorship stuff, and I told him, if you'll put me on the tractor, I'll sponsor. I just want my decals on the tractor, because I watched that live feed show one night, and the tractor went down the track more than anything. I said, that's where I want to be.
Yeah, that's for sure, especially when they're struggling. But
right.
Rich Wade does an amazing job on that place and Orlando, and worked really hard, even at Lights Out 9 when they struggled with the track.
Right.
But then they come back with Sweet 16 and set the world, rotate the earth, set all kinds of records, 9 qualifier or test passes or whatever. I think it was 9 qualifying.
Yeah, I think it was. You're right.
It was just crazy, but it was a lot of fun. And that racing in itself is, X275, John Sears creating a point series is just made that class explode, and it's one of the coolest classes.
He has,
I think.
and Donald's put up the deal now for the same X275 race, and listen, I think they're doing a great job. They're trying to keep the class even. John Sears does a really good job, and you know what I like about him? If he don't understand, he calls, he asks. I can remember James and him took that car up there, and Richard Patterson had a small block LS I just built, and he called me and he said, David, what in the hell is this? And I said, John, it's an LS. He said, not like I've ever seen before. What is it? But he gets it, and he does a really good job with the racers, and hey, they keep that organization going. I think it's going to be a top race for many years.
I think so too. And when you got 50,000 to win at Sweet 16, and that was kind of a fan vote in for the class.
Right.
Donald put it out there. What do y'all want to see? And everybody said X, including myself. And then he says 50,000 to win, and then it comes back. Well, we're going to have a second chance because we had 100 cars register in the first 8 hours, and paid.
Right.
100 cars paid in 8 hours. So he said, all right, we'll do a second chance for 20,000 to win. So all the guys get knocked out first round, get to go back and race for 20, and it makes that show's going to be as impressive as the other class. So
absolutely,
it's just a cool deal, and I think with that, it's almost more interesting than RVW.
Well, RVW is a great class, and I enjoy watching it. But I'll be watching that X275 pretty close.
I know, right? That kind of, even though it's a power adder class, but it's still so restricted and on a 275, whereas RVW is like your fuel cars,
right?
And then X is your pro stock in a way, because it's the fields are tighter and or it's just very, very competitive. And Jeff Nizer and Kenny Hubbard have done amazing stuff over there. And
man, they have. They've done really good. And my hat's off to Kenny. It seems like every car he gets involved with, he turns them into winners.
Yeah, and now he's going LS with a Vortec, and that's going to be stick.
Yes, it is. And he'll come out on fire with it. And listen, he's tuning Lamar Swindle right now.
Oh yeah.
And look what a job they've done. So Kenny's getting a lot of information.
He is. It's really helped. Yeah, and I mean Lamar's Pro Charge big block, and it's going to be, but there's not a whole lot of difference when it comes to the power level per the regulations and stuff, the size of the blowers per cubic inch with their power adder of choice.
Right.
But,
exactly.
I think that that's going to be interesting when Kenny's not changing pistons as much.
Well, let's hope not.
Yeah, right.
Let's hope not.
Yeah. Typically, what we've seen, even that a guy like Kenny that has his tune-up pretty much on point, was on edge, but on point, is when they go to a boosted combination, they're just like, we don't have anything to do now.
Yeah. Well, let's hope it works out that way.
Yeah. He's going to be cooking more, I think.
Right. Well, hey, a man has to know what he's good at, and he's good at that.
He is. So, where as far as this No Prep Kings, do you follow any of the drama with the big tire cars and all that? Have you got to build any of the big tire motors yet?
I do a lot of motors, but nobody that's racing that category right now. But we do a lot of big nitrous motors, in the shop, and we've actually got a couple of them in there right now. Just did a 903 for a guy, and so we do a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
we sure do.
So remember when 700-inch motors were huge,
right? And
now the 903 was supposed to be the pinnacle, and now everybody's gone to 959s.
Right.
Where does it stop with the cubic inch?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can't say that I know, but that 959 is probably where it's going to hold off. If they're going to be...
They said that about 903, though.
I realize that. But I think 959 is a pretty good combination for right now. And it's a combination you can race and not hurt itself. That's what I like.
And it's typically the cubic inch is determined by the head, right?
Pretty well, the bore spacing of the block and the head,
But I mean, you can only go as big as your head will allow.
Right, that's right. It don't do any good to make 1,000 cubic inches if your head won't flow enough air to make it work.
Yeah. So these things are pretty intense. Pro Mod is the biggest it's ever been. Wes Buck's doing a great job with his World Series of Pro Mod, and Keith Haney's Pro Mod and his deal, and of course you have Pro Mod classes with 45 cars registered, 53 registered, not even an Indy. Where do you think this Pro Mod thing is going?
I love where Pro Mod's going. I think the racers are really rallying around that class. They're doing it right. They got their own show. They're actually, those guys are doing a great job. And listen, NHRA's keeping the playing field pretty level. And the guys that go over there, like Stevie Fast, he saw instant success. Now he's kind of seeing how tough it is. He's struggling. He hadn't qualified at one and
two.
Stuff. Two, okay. Well, two. And,
last two, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a very competitive class.
Yes.
I mean, it really is, and those guys are, I got to hand it to Ricky Smith, and Pat Musey does a great job with the guys he does motors for. That class is really, really, really going to be a hitter for a long time.
Do you ever sit back and think, or do people ever tell you, David, you're in the same category as a Pat Musey and a David Rear and Sonny's and all that?
I don't think so. I don't think about that. I mean, I just like what I'm doing. I love it. I talked to Pat the other day, and he and I are really good friends.
Yeah.
And
he's crazy.
He's a mess. He really is. I love him. And we talk about all kind of stuff and how we do this and when we're going to quit. And he said, never. I'm not going to quit. I said, well, I can't either.
Yeah.
What would I do?
Yeah.
Sit home and die? I just get up and go to work every day. That's what I like to do.
As long as your health allows you to get up every morning and go into the office or shop. And
why wouldn't you? You're doing what you love.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that. I get to travel around, announce races, do cool stuff like this with legends, and it's on the lake nonetheless. I mean, it's been a pretty cool experience, but so I can appreciate what you've done and been through and all that, and getting to chat with. I got to hang out with them in his trailer with Dean Marinas when they were here at the Nationals, and Chad Green is doing some big things with nitrous and pro mod, and they're going to go up on the mountain in August, and that's going to be pretty cool. I mean, Rear and Musey are building some of the baddest pro mod stuff out there.
They are. Both of them are doing a great job with that stuff. And the key to that is and I talk to David quite often, and the key to that is they have great service for the guys. The guys pick up the phone, they call Pat. He leads them through what they need to do. He keeps the edge. And I'm going to tell you something. Ricky Smith being involved with Pat has helped him. They both learned.
Yeah. Because
Ricky's so good at utilizing the power that Pat gives him, and he gives feedback back to Pat, and Pat gives him a lot of credit for that. So that's a great marriage they have, and that's what I think makes pro mod a lot stronger category.
Is Ricky the Warren Johnson of pro mod?
I would think Ricky is every bit the Warren Johnson of pro mod. He is. Ricky has that knack of knowing how to win.
Yeah, he
really does.
And puts in the time and the R&D, doesn't he?
He does. He's not afraid to go test. He works hard. He's got it all. He's got it all. And Ricky gets it. He understands the part of racing. He understands how important every little thing is on that car. And I was in his pits in Houston, and we spent a lot of time talking about the pro mod, the pro stock, all the years we worked together, and all the stories we had and stuff. And he still loves it. He's not going to quit. Ricky will be out there for years.
Well, you guys are, for us gray-haired kids coming up, y'all are putting, keeping the dream alive, and not just retiring and going to play golf every day and staying in it and still doing it, having a passion for it still.
Right.
It's cool to be around the legends that when I was growing up were doing well, killing it and doing professional stuff, and now you're still out there and you get to experience some of this new kid stuff, and it's pretty cool to see taking an interest in that.
It is. I think there's a lot of guys coming up that have a lot of potential, and I enjoy helping them. I think that's what the sport needs, and if you find a guy that's got the passion for it, you look and say one day he's going to be a Ricky Smith, or he's going to be a Darrell Alderman, or he's going to be this guy or that guy, and I think that's what makes me keep going and help guys like that.
Well, that's cool. That's a great place, I think, to wrap this up. It's been a great podcast. It's great to talk to you.
I've enjoyed it.
Get your experience in drag racing and your passion for it. What other kind of motorsport do you like besides drag racing?
Well, I've done a lot of development in the NASCAR side, and I know a lot of guys over there, and I enjoy the NASCAR side of it. We've built engines for several teams, done development for them, and I'm interested in NASCAR. I'm good friends with Joe Gibbs, and I know a lot of. I mean, when Ray Everham first got started, we did a lot of development for him, and I can remember when Casey Kane drove the truck back and forth from the engine shop to the car shop, and every day begged Ray to let him get in the car, and now he's a full-time racer. And so I enjoy watching that. I think that's cool.
That's cool. Are you friends with Richard Childress?
I know Richard. I'm not as close with him as I am some of them, but I had a lot of really good experience, and when I was over there, I got to meet a lot of the guys that were my heroes for years, and I got to do a Dave Despain's wind tunnel one time, and I got to do it with Earnhardt, and he was just as cool a guy as you've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was like somebody I looked up to as my idol, for years. So I enjoy that.
That's very cool. it's just cool to hear about all this. Tell us about your wife and your family and the support. Was she always into it, or
She liked racing better than I did.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I mean, we would go to the races, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, she was up ready to go, and I was dragging out of bed, and just she eats and sleeps it, and worked for NHRA, and she just loves it, and she has always been a part of racing. Worked just as hard as anybody in my shop. You know, when we come back, just everything that needed to be done, she worked tireless same hours we did.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
My son works at the shop now, and he enjoys it. He runs a dyno. He's been in racing forever, and would probably still be racing today if he didn't have 2 teenage kids.
Yeah.
But he don't want to miss their growing up, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, trust me, it's fun. I got to get custody of mine and watch them grow up the last 6 years of their high school life and junior high life, whatever. And to be able to enjoy that and now do what I do in my passion is cool. So there's a time and place, and maybe his kids will be in juniors, and then he'll get all back into it. You know?
Maybe.
Or well, they're teenagers, but maybe they get into a real car one day, or they take an interest.
Well,
in
he did tell me that if I got a car for the Cameron, the grandson, that he would shoot me.
Well, that's cool. Well, hey, thank you so much for having us out. A beautiful place here on Lake Conroe, and for the time, and it's been a great podcast, and we appreciate you sitting down with us.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
All right, thanks.
All right, buddy.